Welcome back, everybody. So this series blew me out of the water for real. I enjoyed The Mandalorian so much. It definitely they redeemed themselves from that trilogy, which shall not be spoken of, because it was garbage. Yeah, I said it. Now I'm not talking about the actors and the actresses; they did a phenomenal job, but the writing, garbage. And because, listen, they treated our good brother, what's his name, John Boyega, they treated him with disrespect. Okay, that's what he said on the set of that series. So, like I said, trash. They redeemed themselves with this, the Book of Boba Fett. Okay, they redeemed themselves. Anyways, now in the beginning, they did have a scene where they were inducting a new youngling, so to speak, into the fold of Mandalorianship. And at first, they had me real good because I thought that was Din Jarin and this was a flashback, but it was actually the current. This was a new one that they were inducting in. And he was saying the creed. They gave him his little helmet, and then it got all interrupted by this weird lizard alligator-looking creature. And man, that thing took quite a few of them out. And I was like, listen, y'all are shooting your little things in him, but that's all gonna be fun and games until he does a death roll. She did. And doggone it, they were trying to help each other out and watch each other's back. They weren't gonna make it, y'all. But then Din Jarin came out of nowhere and blasted him to smithereens, and I was like, teamwork makes the dream work. But anyways, so it was kind of funny to me, and I feel like hypocritical. Bo-Katan, was out. She was upset, which reasonably so. She had already broken the whole creed thing, the religious thing, taking off the helmet. She said, screw y'all and that helmet stuff. She was alone because she, after in the last season, remember, they all found out that he had the saber, so they didn't have any respect for her because they felt like you're supposed to be the leader, you're supposed to have the saber or whatever, and she didn't really want to fight him to the death to get it, and I don't blame them. Like, I just think that's, come on, y'all. So they didn't want to be led by her anymore, but the dude who they were being led by didn't have the saber either, so it's like, how much sense does that make? But they do have it. But anyways, and she was upset, like I said, rightfully so. She had it all. She was royalty, but then Mandalore got destroyed by the Empire. Everything was gone. They couldn't even go back to their home planet, and she was just, I feel like she was upset. She was depressed, like I said, reasonably so. Meanwhile, Din Djarin is going around with Groku trying to, be redeemed. They're telling him he has to bathe in the waters of Niagara Falls in order to be able to be redeemed. He's trying so hard, and I feel like they were very hard on him. Because they were like, well, you can't actually do it because you have to go to Mandalore to be able to do it. And Mandalore, it's been bombed. The surface is not breathable. The air is toxic. And he was like, well, if I go there and find out that it's not toxic and I bathe in there, can I be redeemed? And they were like, well, if you can, sure. And I'm just like, y'all are being hard on him, I feel. So then he goes to look for a droid. He wanted to get the original droid that they had, but it, I guess, rebooted to its default facilities. And they couldn't use him, and then he went back to I think he was like the High Magistrate, that was his name, and it was nice seeing him again, and how he was like in his fancy clothes, and the planet was doing better. They were doing better for themselves. Of course, you got the occasional knuckleheads like those pirates that tried to try them, and but hey, the Mandalorian cleared that up real fast. And of course, they tried to chase him down, and he cleared that up real fast. And he was telling Grogu, listen, you gotta learn how to navigate, gotta learn how to find your way through anything, despite where you are in the galaxy. Never trust pirates. They never keep their word. He was like, oh, he was so cute. There, I said it. So then he goes to try and get a droid, and he goes back to that lady. I don't remember her name, but she was hysterical. I didn't do a Book of Boba Fett series review, but that last fight was the bomb, and that was hysterical when she was driving around in that little cart thing, and then they shot it and she fell and she hit the ground and her teeth came out. I had tears in my eyes. He went back to her and she was like, oh, I got a droid for you, and the droid was like, I ain't trying to do that. The way that droid was trying to get away from her, and she was like, go on, like, show him what you got, this is your chance. And that droid was like, beep beep bubble, beep beep, no. And he was like, just take him, he'll be fine. And he was like, yeah, I hope so. So he takes the droid to make sure that the surface is breathable. Come to find out that the surface is not toxic, the air is not toxic like how they were made to believe. I don't know who spun that lie, but they should be ashamed of themselves. And then he goes and, well, he had told Bo-Katan, you know, that he was going to try and go and bathe in the waters of Minnetonka to try and get redeemed. And she was like, I don't know why you even feel the need to do that. Like, screw it. And he was like, no, I'm going to do this because, you know, this is the way. And she was like, well, fine. If you want to go with the hard religion way, then you go do that. But you go do it by yourself. And the way she said goodbye, Din Jarin, at first I was a little distrustful of her because I felt like she was a bit jealous of him because he still had that saber. And I'm like, well, it's not his fault you weren't there to get it when he got it, you know? And she was just like sitting on her throne like mad. Like I said, I understand. And then he then got captured. And doggone it, Groku leaves to go get help. And she was like, what is he doing? I told him, you know what, this is going to be the last time. At first I thought that she was going to do something crazy. But then when she saw Groku, she was like, what are you doing here? He was trying to explain, you know, he was just like, you know, And so she takes him, she puts on her helmet, and she saved his life. I was like, wow, up here saving people's lives. You go, girl. And then she managed to take the saber, and she defeated the thing. And she was like, are you all right? And he was like, yeah, I'm good. And then he goes to the waters, and he was just so like serious and, you know, just had such integrity about the process. You know, this was very important to him. He was like, finally I can bathe in the waters of Minnetonka. And then he almost drowns in the water. I was like, he's going through it, man, for this. And I don't think it's fair. I don't think it's right. She has to save his life again. And I was like, you owe her twice now. And she was like, it's fine. And then they went back, and they were like, he was like, I did go to Mandalore. It is fine. The wildlife over there is raggedy, but we bathed in the waters of Calahoochee, and we managed to get done what we had to get done. And she was like, oh, well, Bo-Katan can now be welcomed into the fold too. And she was like, but I didn't ask to be welcomed into the fold. And she was like, but you bathed in the water of Niagara Falls as well, so you apply. And she was like, okay. Like, she was just like, I guess, well, this is the way then, you know. And I'm just like, really? She didn't even ask for it. Y'all just over here handing out stuff, and this guy got to work for it. Anyways, y'all handed her redemption, but he had to work anyways. So she took off her helmet. Well, they went to talk, her and I think it was like the armorer. And she took off the helmet, and they were all looking at her like, why does she have her helmet off again? Now she's got to go bathe again. And she was like, no. She is a part of the new generation. She can reach the new generation. We need to put aside how we feel. We can do us and let the new generation do them with taking off their helmets if that's what they want to do. But right now, we need to come together and be as one. And she can link us because she is Mandalorian royalty. And they were like, whatever, okay. So she goes to get the other people. And, you know, Din Djarin went with her. And she has to fight I guess almost to the death, this guy who was a complete and total jerk, who was the new leader. Like I said, didn't make a heap of sense how he get to be the leader, but they can turn their backs on her even though he didn't have the saber either. So that fight was actually pretty dope, I'm not gonna lie. And then she won basically, and I was like, well, give her props, you know. And he was like, well, you still can't lead anyways, you don't have the saber, he has it. And he was like, well, actually, I got bested by this animal on Mandalore, and she bested the animal, so technically she did beat me, so this is yours now. And she was kind of like, I was like, girl, if you don't take that freaking saber, he didn't spell it out for you, take it. She was like, you're right, I did beat it after I beat you, and I took it down. So they were like, oh, well, it makes sense to us. And then she became the leader again, and I was like, finally, we can put this behind us. And then she brought them to the rest of them, and they were kind of looking at each other like religious heathens, and they were looking like overly religious idiots. And it was, you know, the tensions were a little shaky, and they were able to come all, you know, stay where, you know, on that planet, which I thought was cool. And then they were going around helping people, seeing them, Groku, Din Djarin, and Bo-Katan helping people. That was the dopest. Them going to that planet. I did not expect to see Lizzo and Jack Black. That was a very nice character placement. I appreciated that as the married couple, the general and the Duchess, and them trying to find out what was going on, who was tampering with those droids, and him talking about some, oh, well, we don't. I hated them droids. I have hatred, and I think that they're hysterical at the same time because they're just so annoying. That monotone, where do you think you're going? such incompetence. But anyways, him talking about, I wouldn't do that if I were you. He kicked that robot, and then he kicked the next one, and it basically got up and started running. And then basically going to the bar, and doggone it, Din Jarin basically like, I will shoot and short circuit all of y'all. And Bo-Katan was like, I'm gonna need you to take it down a notch. I know you don't like droids like that, but I'm gonna need you to take it down just a little bit. And I'm finding out that it was the guy who played in Back to the Future, who was at it all along, talking about, I can press this button and every droid in the city will go haywire and start shooting people. And they were like, but why would you do that? And it was funny because they distracted him long enough to knock him smooth out before he could press the button. And I was like, why is that button sitting right there conveniently? Why isn't that button in a box that requires a key, that requires a passcode and a thumbprint? That's not a button you just want. But like I said, they took care of him real fast. I feel like the Empire planted him there. It could have been Moff Gideon for all we know too. He was real apologetic when he got to the Duchess, but I still feel like he had something up his sleeve, you know what I'm saying? Like he was saving face, trying to pretend like he was apologetic, but he really wasn't. But they put him away, and then they came back to get Groku, who was playing with them, and I thought that was a very cute scene. And then they went back home. Meanwhile, Moff Gideon has fashioned himself his own Mandalorian suit with the doggone Beskar or whatever. Talking about I have the clone army and the Beskar with the effects of the Mandalorian weapons. I have the best of both worlds, and I don't need y'all anymore. Time to exterminate you for good. And I was like, but at the same time, you also have the drawbacks of both. Like I said, the clone army, the droid army was just incompetence. Now, the clone army, they're not that far of a step above, okay? But, some of them, came out kind of smart, but they weren't that far of a step above, so you've got the drawbacks of that. And then you don't know how to use the Mandalorian technology like the Mandalorians do, okay? You just got this yesterday. Anyway, so he really tried to, like I said, take two different worlds and put it together, and thought that he could, best the Mandalorians. And it was the part for me where he tried to, they had went back to Mandalorian. They were trying to move everybody back. He basically was like, oh, I got them right where I needed them. And they had been hiding out in that hole in the ground that entire time. And it was sad because they tried to lure them in there. And there was that one guy who stayed behind. I was like, why you had to go and be a hero, man? You were mean to Din Jarin, but you were cool. You had the bazooka shotgun, machine gun, so to speak, and he stayed behind, and then he got all stabbed up, and that made me sad. He was like, give me back the saber, and she was like, take it from me. And they managed to get the ship that they did have, the other guy who she beat out of the leadership position. That was very smart of him. He was like, we didn't got shot up, and he got everybody to get out to make it look like they were all in there. He was like, I'm gonna need everybody to get jetpacks. Get the heck out of Dodge, because I'm coming in hot. And then he busted a hole through the window and got out of there. Meanwhile, they were fighting Moff Gideon. And then Jarin was fighting Moff Gideon. And then he was losing after he got captured. And then Groku came in there, and then he was losing. But then he kind of got help. And then Jarin came, and then they were helping each other. And he was using the Force, and he was slashing people and using his little thing. That scene was the coolest. There, I said it. Then when they went to fight Moff Gideon, she was fighting Moff Gideon, and then he helped her, and they were saying we're better together, when we help each other. And seeing them flying all up in the sky and hitting people, like I said, only the Mandalorians could do the Mandalorian like the Mandalorians, okay? That's why his little clone army lost. And they were fighting, and the thing came, they were all flying out of there. And he was really gonna try and stay there and fight them to the very bitter end. And then she got in front of them with the shield, and I was like, that's real cute, but I don't know what that shield is supposed to do about an exploding ship. But then Groku was, doing his little thing. Every time he did that, I had tears in my eyes. It was so adorable, but it was so hilarious. Him doing his little thing, he was just like, and that was just so cute. And he protected them. They were looking, and he was like a little orb, and he didn't got incinerated, so to speak. And they're just like, wow. And then all the smoke goes away, and then they get out of there. They've taken out another enemy. So they go back, and, they talk to the magistrate. And he was basically like, you know, he wanted him to be a marshal, but he had to be a Mandalorian, going out and doing things. So they said, we don't want you just staying in one place. We want you to go out. Like, keep your principles in your religion, adhere to, you know, the Mandalorian things. We want you to go out and help people in the galaxy, you know. But he was saying, you know, this is your home. You want a place to stay after you're done with a mission, whatever. This can be your home. It gave him a house. And that ending scene, y'all, where Grogu was playing with the frog and he was sitting outside just chilling, they were their own family. And when he adopted him, because he was like, I want him to be a Mandalorian, they were like, well, you can't just be doing that because he's not your son. He was like, well, I'm adopting him. And I was like, well, I thought that I was under the impression that this had already indirectly taken place. But the fact that he did it verbally, publicly, directly, that was the icing on the cake. And like I said, seeing them at the house, him at the pond with the frog, that was the icing on the cake for this series, y'all. Like I said, this series was beautiful. Beautiful. I loved it. And the music, oh my God. A1. But like I said, it was beautiful. And this redeemed, for the most part, it redeemed Star Wars. A little bit. A little bit. Okay. But anyways, y'all let me know what y'all think and how y'all feel down in the comments below.